Hello, everybody, and welcome into the 12 Squared YouTube channel. My name is Charlie Gross, and as you can see today, I've got a 10-minute take video for you about Buffalo Bills wide receiver Gabriel Davis, and should the Buffalo Bills trade him after the 2022 season. But before we get into that, I'd like to tell you a little bit about the channel, what you got yourself into here on this YouTube channel. My wife and I started a company called 12 Squared, and we did it because we've got all these other things we want to work on, like these 10-minute takes. We have Trust the Process Analytics. I'll be doing a Buffalo Bills podcast called Humble and Hungry. We'll have an NFL podcast, and we'll also have some YouTube reaction channel stuff, Star Wars, Game of Thrones, music, like any type of music that we so desire to listen to. We'll have some gaming content as well. So that's why the YouTube channel is called 12 Squared. It's just a big clearinghouse for all the stuff that we've got going on. Have some live YouTube shows, maybe a little more NFL centric. I know most people know me from the Buffalo Bills content creation community, built in Buffalo. I worked Buffalo Fanatics for a little while. And so certainly I'll do some Bills live streams, but some of it will just be more NFL centric. So I just wanted to share that with you guys before we got going into this 10-minute take video. So let me start the clock here. I know this is real official. I even have it timed down, and here we go. So I know people who know me think I'm this big Gabe Davis hater and all this kind of stuff, and I'm really not. I love Gabe Davis. I think he's a great playmaker. I just have concerns about, can he handle the load of a number 2 wide receiver? And we're going to find out this year, because it looks like that's the role that they have envisioned for him. So I got thinking, what would happen if he has, I guess he's had a breakout year, but in terms of more catches, more yards, things like that, more regular season touchdowns. And then after 2022 is over, you start looking at different things like how the Buffalo Bills like to allocate salary cap dollars, and how I feel like the Bills have a set, percentage for each position group. We only want to spend 12% on wide receiver. We only want to spend 15% on defensive line, things like that. So with Josh Allen's huge extension going to hit in 2023, Stephon Diggs money that's going to hit. If Gabe Davis balls out, the next 2 years, he might be approaching $20 million. Plus, you've got guys like Ed Oliver, Dawson Knox, Tremaine Edmonds, who are going to need deals. And when a lot of this money hits, even in 2025, if you think about it, Greg Rousseau will be on his 5th-year option. Matt Milano, Trey White, they'll be looking for 3rd contracts. Deion Dawkins will be looking for a 3rd contract. So I know there's a lot of things that Brandon Beane can do with the salary cap, and he's used a lot of his tools in terms of, converting base salaries to bonus money. I think we've all been very educated on the cap in the last couple of years due to Brandon Beane's kind of mastery of that skill. But I think we've also seen that even if you look at a team like the Saints, at some point you do have to let guys go. Now, ideally, it's guys who are in their, early 30s. So maybe Deion Dawkins doesn't get a 2nd contract. What do they do with Jordan Poyer? I know him and his agent just approached the Bills about a contract extension. Can you keep all these guys? What about Devin Singletary? Now, running backs don't get huge contracts, but still, you've got to work his money in. Von Miller money is going to hit at some point. So I started looking at salary cap percentages, and Josh Allen's going to go from like 7% of the cap to 18% of the cap. And then you got Diggs, who goes from being 5 or 6% of the cap to being 12% of the cap. So then you throw in Gabriel Davis's money, and are they going to want to commit on an average per year basis? Are they going to want to commit $20 million to Davis, $21 million to Diggs, $46 million, $44 million to Allen? What about Knox? Knox is going to get what, 12, 13? What about Tremaine Edmonds? He's playing on his fifth-year option for 13 million. He's not going to take less than 13 million. What about Ed Oliver? What is he going to get? So at some point, I just wonder if they're going to have to sort of sacrifice somebody, to walk the plank, if you will, to get these salaries to fit in. Now, like I said, maybe that's a Jordan Poyer. I just went down the road of Gabe Davis simply because he plays the same position as Stephon Diggs. So if you're willing to get big money tied up in one guy, right? Like they've got big money tied up in Von Miller for the edge. You've got big money tied up in Ed Oliver. Okay. You've got big money tied up in Trey White. And then they're trying to go real economical on the other side of Trey White at corner. You got big money, tied with Deion Dawkins. But on the other side, you got Spencer Brown, very cheap. So I'm wondering if they're going to do the same thing at wide receiver. And if that's the case, you've got big money tied up in Diggs. So do you trade Davis before his extension hits when his value is high? And do you just draft another guy? I mean, we see it all the time. Diggs himself, 5th-round pick. Davis, 4th-round pick. Cooper Kupp was a middle-round pick. Andre Reed was a middle-round pick. There are all these things and I think, finding wide receivers is fairly easy in the league. If you go back and look at these drafts, you got guys coming in from all over the place, all different rounds, and the first-round wide receivers tend to struggle a little bit. Sure, there's exceptions like Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase. I'm not saying that every first-round wide receiver is terrible. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I think if you look at the history, certainly the past 5 or 6 years, you'll see that guys who aren't taken in the first round excel a lot more than guys who were. So Terry McLaurin, DJ Moore, the draft is littered with examples like this. So if you can get these guys in the 3rd, 4th, 5th rounds, doesn't it make more sense to trade Gabe Davis? Because you're very confident in your ability to find another guy. This year, guys like John Mechie, maybe Jahan Dotson falls, Romeo Dubs. There's guys, that are going to be sort of just available if you go on the Draft Network or Pro Football Network and look at the draft simulators. There's just, it's a deeply talented wide receiver class every year. So that coupled with, where do the Bills fall? Like Brandon Beane has said when it comes to contract negotiations that he tells every player, look, we have a price. We'd love to have you back, but we have a price in mind for you. And if you can go and get more on the open market, then best of luck to you. With no ill will, no hard feelings. And I feel like they have those same buckets when it comes to percentage of cap dollars. Now, Josh Allen's the exception, right? Like, obviously, you don't want him to be 50% of your cap, but I'm sure they're fine with him being in that 20% range, that 18 million range. And then you've got to make it work. And how do you make it work? You make it work with cheaper starters at other positions. Rumor is that the Bills would be willing to trade a veteran to move up in the draft. Now, I'm not saying that is Gabe Davis this year, but who is it then? Who's a veteran, a starter, who's a veteran, who has enough value for the Bills to move up in the first round that they'd be willing to part with? Is it Dawkins? Poyer? I don't think it's Dawkins. Poyer, maybe? Or do they think that they're not going to be able to sign Edmonds? Do they think they can get somebody, I don't know, better is the word. I know they love Edmonds, but are they afraid that his number will be too high? I think these are things we have to consider. What if Edmonds plays this season and he wants $19 million? Are you going to pay Tremaine Edmonds $19 million when you've got all these other guys I just mentioned who either need contracts or have contracts? Maybe you have to get rid of Poyer and Edmonds in order to keep Davis. Maybe you have to get rid of Davis and Poyer to keep Edmonds. So it's this thing where I'm just trying to figure out where these percentages fall for the Bills. I don't want to trade Gabe Davis, but at the same time, what do you get back? Is another team willing to give you a first-round pick for Gabe Davis, a second-round pick. Is if he hits the open market, we've seen teams. Look what the Jacksonville Jaguars paid for Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk's not worth that, really. If you analyze his play and you do it analytically as opposed to other wide receivers and the money in that, they overpaid. What happens if Gabe Davis goes to free agency and the same thing happens and the Bills are like, hey, man, sorry, we got to let you go? Wouldn't trading him first and getting an asset for him make more sense? Now, the reason I linked this to after 2022 is because we haven't seen Gabe Davis with a target share worthy of wide receiver 2. And that's what I've been talking about. So every time you see me on Twitter and every time you see me talking about, I don't know if Gabe Davis can handle it, that's what I mean. I don't know if he can handle the target share. I don't know if he can handle the extra attention, because before, when he's wide receiver 4, you've got Diggs, Sanders, Beasley, and this year Knox, who are all probably getting more attention than him. Now being wide receiver 2, being that boundary receiver, suddenly he's going to go up, probably above Crowder, maybe above Knox. So we'll see what happens. Now he's got to create more of his own space, create his own separation. His teammates won't be able to take all the heat off of him. Well, there you go, people. 10-minute take as promised. Bills Mafia, thank you so much for checking this out. I hope you check out all the content coming up. Like I said, daily Bills podcast, Humble and Hungry. Daily NFL podcast, Once I Think of a Name. We got the Trust the Process Analytics. We're going to have Gridiron After Dark, which will be the YouTube show. Please check out our gaming content. Please check out our reaction content. It will all be on this YouTube channel, 12 Squared. As you can hear, the timer's going off. I am out. First episode of Humble and Hungry drops tomorrow with special guest Justice Radford from the Buffalo fan base. Thanks for watching. Have a great night and go